Hello, well my name's Peter Davis and I will be leading you through the module on leadership and people organisations. It's in two parts. The first part deals with the people organisations and the processes, and the second part looks very much more in the leadership and management of change areas, although there'll be a bit of a changeover between the two. Let me just say a few words about myself and my own background, and then I'll talk about the modules themselves. First of all, my background. I've come into management from the standpoint of a trade union official. I worked in industrial relations for 7 years, did a lot of work in a very wide range of industries, from agricultural cooperatives right the way through to slaughtering, to right the way through to hairdressers' apprentices. I did a lot of work in the retail sector, logistics, warehousing, transport and distribution. After I'd been a trade union official, I went into education for a little while, did quite a bit of work on various management programs at my local polytechnic in Leicester. Went into management consulting, worked for the City of London, one of the biggest chartered accountants in the city, Moores Rowland International, worked for them, and then went on to the Cranfield Institute's National Materials Handling Centre as a senior consultant and worked there. So I've done quite a bit of work in mainstream management and management consulting, but my real passion's always been the cooperative movement, and I've worked as a consultant with the Plunkett Foundation in the agricultural co-op sector. I've worked with the financial services sector. I'm a founder of a local credit union in the United Kingdom, and I've had a wide experience of teaching, lecturing and researching and publishing in that area. So I've got quite a broad base really, and I come at the cooperative movement from that very broad-based perspective. The first module starts by looking at the history of HRM, where it's come from, how it's evolved. We look at the competition and conflict of ideals between personnel management on the one hand, which itself, interestingly enough, evolved very much out of the thinking of Robert Owen. Robert Owen, as an industrialist and as a person who was trying very much to reform society and reform the way industry operated in the beginnings of the Industrial Revolution, had a major influence on the more progressive elements within the manufacturing community, particularly on nonconformist Christians and the Quaker tradition. So the Bourneville model village was very much a reference to the New Harmony village of Owen, and the personnel management itself, the Institute of Personnel Management, started as the Institute of Welfare Workers, and it was established by a nonconformist Christian, Jesse Boot, in Nottingham, specifically to look after working women, because they were going into the industrial sector, particularly during the First World War, when men were being sent off to get killed in Europe. And the personnel management tradition has always had this welfare element very strongly embedded in it from this nonconformist origins. Over the years it's evolved and then become challenged, particularly in the late 60s in the UK, with an alternative approach to management of people, which really takes a more instrumental view, sees the personnel or the HR role as it had become very much as one serving management's interests, rather than the old personnel position that would have been much more to look at the stakeholder position, recognising trade unions as legitimate, recognising that there were genuine conflicts of interest. That philosophy changes with HR, and you get a much more operationally led perspective on human resources and how they can be utilised for the benefit of the organisation. What we're seeking to do is to look at what cooperative people management can learn from these two alternative philosophies, because, don't misunderstand me, HR has some very strong and important lessons to teach us, and we shouldn't just dismiss it as purely instrumental and somehow right wing. There's lots of things that are important in HR, but at the same time there are many aspects of personnel management which fit the cooperative model better. But I want to argue, and I want to sort of lead you to think about how we move those two models forward into a cooperative framework that's more tailored to our business model and our ideals and our values and principles. And in this we move on through to look at learning organisation theory, and we look at intellectual capital management theory, the idea of human capital and development, and I take you through to an idea, and it is an idea, it's a speculation of what cooperative social capital management might actually mean. So we do that, we look at, if you like, the theoretical and historical background in the first unit. After that, we are then looking in the second unit very much at the process and the cycle of HR. We're looking at how you plan for employment in a cooperative context, how you then define what the employment needs are, what you need to go to the market for, where to recruit, how to ensure you get the right kind of balance in your workforce, how you manage diversity, how you manage equal opportunities, etc. And in that respect, we move from recruitment to managing the selection process, to issues of induction, appraisal. We look at the whole performance management area. We look at development. We look at rewards, and particularly we start looking at the end game. We start looking at termination. We look at what happens for people coming towards retirement, how we manage the redundancies, retirements and termination aspect of the employment cycle. So we go right the way through what you might call the employee life cycle in Unit 2 of the programme, and hopefully we'll introduce you to some strategies and tools that can be useful in the day-to-day management of people in your cooperative organisations. In the third unit, we start to look at industrial relations, employment relations, and the remuneration compensation package that it can be offered. We look at how we manage conflict, how we manage the industrial relations, and we look particularly at how trade unions and co-ops can interface and interact, and we look at their interesting mutual histories and their structures and their comparable values and principles, and how co-ops and trade unions should be able to work together. So that's really closes down the programme, with that concept of change management being very much part of the backdrop to employee relationships management itself. And that takes us straight really in to where we go with the next unit, which I'll tell you about when we get there. But let's get on with this unit first. Thank you.